Why do we search for meaning in life? This question seems to follow us like a shadow, silent but persistent, hovering over our decisions and emotions. There are moments when life feels full of purpose, when everything aligns in a magical way, and experiences are so rich with meaning that we can almost touch it. But there are other moments, perhaps more frequent, when we look at the world and feel that it does not respond. The universe seems silent, indifferent to our hopes and questions. This silence can be frightening, but also fascinating, like a door that opens to the unknown. Albert Camus called this the absurd, the confrontation between our innate desire for answers and the apparent absence of them in the universe. For him, this paradox is not a problem to be solved, but a condition of human existence. We want to know why. Why are we here? What is the purpose of all this? And the universe in its vastness remains silent. It's like shouting into an infinite desert and only hearing the echo of our own voice. However, perhaps we are asking the wrong question. What if the problem isn't in the silence of the universe, but in our insistence on finding a predefined meaning? What if the question wasn't what is the meaning of life, but something deeper and more liberating? Perhaps the real invitation is to accept that life doesn't give us ready-made answers, but instead offers something even more precious, the freedom to create our own questions. Albert Camus developed the philosophy of absurdism as a way to face this fundamental tension between human desire for meaning and the indifference of the universe. He described the absurd as the collision between two forces. On one side, our incessant search for order, purpose, and explanation. On the other, the indifferent nature of the universe, which offers no clear or definitive answers. This view is not pessimistic as it may seem at first. On the contrary, Camus believed that the recognition of the absurd was an opportunity to live more authentically and freely. He rejected both the idea that the universe has a divinely established purpose and the nihilistic conclusion that, without a predetermined meaning, life is meaningless. For Camus, the absurd life is precisely where its beauty lies. It challenges us to create meaning rather than simply receive it. Camus distinguished his approach from other contemporary philosophies. Sartre's existentialism, for example, also recognized the absence of intrinsic meaning in the universe but emphasized the radical freedom of each individual to create their own essence. Kierkegaard, a deeply religious philosopher, saw facing the absurd as a doorway to faith. He proposed the leap of faith as a response to the paradox, accepting the existence of something greater beyond human reason. Camus, on the other hand, rejected this leap. For him, accepting the absurd should not lead to escape, whether through faith or resignation to nihilism. His metaphor of the myth of Sisyphus brilliantly captures this idea. Sisyphus, condemned by the gods to roll a stone to the top of a mountain, only to watch it roll back down, represents the endless and seemingly pointless struggle of the human condition. However, Camus invites us to imagine Sisyphus happy. Why? Because even in the face of the absurd, he finds meaning in the very act of pushing the stone, in the effort and persistence that make his struggle an affirmation of life. This perspective invites us to reflect on how we live our own struggles. Do we constantly seek an end point, a final meaning that validates our efforts? Or can we find joy in the process, in the simple act of living and persevering despite everything? Camus challenges us to view the absurd not as an enemy to be conquered, but as a companion that challenges us to live more intensely. The silence of the universe is something that, for many, seems like a curse. It's the absence of definitive answers, an emptiness that echoes in our search for purpose. But what if this silence, instead of being a burden, were actually a gift? What if, in the lack of external answers, we found the freedom to create our own truths, our own meanings? When we look at spiritual practices, we find approaches that do not seek definitive answers, but embrace uncertainty as an integral part of life. Buddhism, for example, teaches that suffering arises from attachment to certainties and the desire to control what cannot be controlled. The practice of meditation is not a quest for answers, but an exercise in presence, acceptance, and stillness. The same can be said of Taoism, which invites us to flow with the natural course of things, rather than resist or impose our will on the universe. These traditions suggest that the absence of intrinsic meaning is not something to be feared, but rather an invitation. The silence of the universe frees us from the need to conform to a predetermined purpose. It gives us space to imagine, create, and shape the meaning of our lives, according to who we are and what we value. It is like a blank canvas waiting for our colors and forms, or a piece of clay ready to be molded. Uncertainty, though uncomfortable, is also a source of creative freedom. When we accept that the universe does not owe us answers, we become responsible for creating meaning on our own terms. This is not an easy task, but it is deeply empowering. Instead of seeking something outside of ourselves to complete us, we learn to look within and find internal resources that connect us to the world in a unique way. Think about the freedom that arises when you let go of the need to please a universal script. Suddenly, your choices are no longer judged by external standards, but reflect your true essence. This silence we fear so much may actually be the purest source of creation, a chance to sculpt an authentic life aligned with what matters to us. Can we look at the emptiness of the universe and see it as an invitation, rather than a sentence? Can we transform the absence of answers into fertile ground for new possibilities? These questions are like seeds. They don't offer guarantees, but they have the power to grow and guide us to a fuller life, where silence is not an absence, but a presence rich with potential. Carl Jung, in contrast to Albert Camus, offers a perspective that shifts attention from confronting the external universe and directs it toward the inner universe. For Jung, the meaning of life is not something we seek out there, but something that emerges from within us, through confronting the hidden and unconscious aspects of our psyche. The concept of the shadow is central to Jung's work. The shadow represents those parts of ourselves that we prefer to ignore, reject, or repress. Desires, fears, personality traits that we judge unacceptable. Jung believed that the process of self-knowledge required us to face this shadow, to integrate it rather than fight it. Not to become perfect, but to become whole. This confrontation may be uncomfortable, but it is in it that we find the keys to true purpose and meaning. While Camus invites us to resist and find joy in the struggle against the absurdity of the world, Jung suggests that the meaning of life lies in the journey toward individuation, the process of integrating all parts of our being, conscious and unconscious, light and darkness, reason and emotion. Individuation is more than a path of self-discovery, it is a return to the wholeness we lost when we disconnected from our essence. This process is deeply related to the unconscious, which Jung saw as a rich source of wisdom and symbolism. Dreams, fantasies, and seemingly inexplicable impulses often carry messages from the unconscious, guiding us toward what truly matters. Instead of ignoring these signs or dismissing them as irrelevant, Jung encourages us to explore them, to seek what they can teach us about our deepest needs, desires, and fears. Individuation is thus an invitation to look within and find meaning in the very journey of self-knowledge. It does not promise definitive answers, but offers a path to create meaning from our own experience. It is a deeply individual process, but also universal, as we all face the challenge of integrating our fragments and finding harmony between who we are and who we desire to be. The contrast between Camus and Jung is fascinating. Camus teaches us to face the external world with courage, to accept its indifference, and to find joy in the act of living. Jung, on the other hand, shows us that meaning can emerge from our inner world, from our dialogue with the shadow and the effort to become whole. Together, they offer us a map to navigate both the external and internal universes, showing that purpose is not found in one place, but in our ability to explore both territories. Spirituality enters the scene as a profoundly human response to the absurdity and silence of the universe. It does not seek to fill the void with simplistic answers, but in many cases, teaches us to embrace uncertainty and find meaning in connection with something greater. It is not about escape or illusion, but about reconnecting with the vastness of being, with that which transcends the individual. Spiritual practices like meditation and contemplation offer tools to face the absurd with serenity. Meditating is not about finding answers, but about learning to be present in the moment, accepting life as it is, in its impermanence and mystery. The act of contemplation, in turn, invites us to look at the world with renewed eyes, seeing beauty and purpose in the simplest things: the rising sun, the sound of the wind, the sparkle of a star. The ritualization of everyday life is another spiritual path that helps us find meaning. When we transform ordinary moments into conscious acts, we give them symbolic weight that transcends the mundane. Lighting a candle while reflecting on our desires or concerns, writing in a journal as a form of inner dialogue, or even taking a moment of gratitude before a meal, all of these reconnect us to the sacred in the everyday. Several spiritual traditions directly address the absurdity and transience of life. Buddhism, for example, teaches that everything is impermanent and that attachment is the root of suffering. But instead of despairing over this reality, it invites acceptance. By accepting impermanence, we find freedom and peace. Stoicism, an ancient philosophy that can also be seen as spiritual, reminds us of memento mori, remember that you will die, not as a morbid thought, but as a reminder that each moment is precious and deserves to be lived fully. Spirituality, therefore, does not ignore the absurd but embraces it. It teaches us that even in a silent universe, we can find meaning by living in harmony with the flow of life and connecting with something greater than ourselves. This something could be God, the cosmos, nature, or even humanity as a whole. What matters is the feeling that we belong to a larger tapestry, where each thread, no matter how fragile it may seem, contributes to the overall design. By bringing spiritual practices into our lives, we create a space to deal with uncertainty and find meaning even when there are no definitive answers. The question remains, how can you incorporate these practices into your daily life, transforming the silence of the universe into a source of connection and purpose? Albert Camus left us with a powerful image in his work, The Myth of Sisyphus. The figure of the man condemned to endlessly push a stone up a mountain, only to watch it roll back down to the starting point. It is a portrait of the human struggle, the continuous effort that seems, at first glance, devoid of meaning. But for Camus, the true revelation comes when we imagine Sisyphus happy. The joy, he argues, does not come from victory or conquest, but from the full acceptance of the journey. Finding beauty in the struggle is one of the deepest lessons of absurdism. Life does not need to have an intrinsic purpose for it to be lived with intensity and meaning. The effort of pushing the stone day after day becomes a form of resistance. It is the affirmation that even in the face of the absurd, we can still choose to live, create, and find joy in the movement. This idea echoes in modern practices like mindfulness, which teaches us to be present in every moment, regardless of its difficulty or apparent monotony. Mindfulness does not promise to eliminate effort, but offers a way to engage with it, perceiving the richness that exists even in the simplest tasks. Pushing the stone, in this context, becomes a meditation in motion, an act of being fully present in what we do. Imagine for a moment your own journey. What are the stones you carry? What efforts feel repetitive or unrewarding? And if, instead of focusing on the end goal, you turned your attention to the process? Sisyphus teaches us that when we abandon the search for external meaning and fully engage in the act of living, the effort itself becomes a source of meaning. Moreover, finding joy in the struggle is a form of liberation. By accepting the absurd, we stop fighting against it. It is not surrender, but transformation. Instead of resenting the effort, we can begin to see it as an opportunity to connect with our own humanity. Every movement of the stone, every step up the mountain, is an expression of our strength, creativity, and ability to resist. This perspective is profoundly transformative. It teaches us that happiness is not found in the absence of effort, but in the way we relate to it. When we choose to accept life as it is, in all its complexity and imperfection, we discover that there is beauty even in the struggle. We can then imagine Sisyphus not as a man condemned, but as someone who, in the simple act of continuing, found freedom. That is his joy, and it could be ours too. Death, often seen as the absolute end, can be one of life's deepest teachers. Its impact goes beyond fear or sadness. It confronts us with the impermanence of all we know and challenges us to find meaning in the here and now. When we reflect on death, not only as a closure but as an integral part of the human experience, we begin to understand that it can illuminate the way we live. Various cultures around the world treat death not only as a loss but as a sacred transition. In Mexico, for example, Dia de los Muertos celebrates the continuous connection between the living and the deceased. It is a moment to honor ancestors, reflect on their influence, and recognize that life and death are inseparable. This perspective transforms death from a final, feared event into a stage that is part of a larger cycle. On a spiritual level, many traditions see awareness of death as a tool for growth. Buddhism, for example, teaches us to contemplate death to remember the preciousness of each moment. The practice of memento mori, so central in Stoic philosophy, also invites reflection on our mortality. Not as a way to generate anxiety, but as a call to action. If this were your last day, how would you live it? Reframing death as a teacher helps us see how much it can teach us about gratitude and presence. When we know our time is finite, every moment gains greater weight. The choices we make, the people we connect with, and the dreams we pursue become more valuable. Death reminds us that life cannot be lived in waiting. It demands our full engagement here and now. This understanding also helps us deal with the fear of death. Instead of seeing it as an enemy, we can begin to accept it as a natural part of the flow of existence. Accepting death is not giving up on life. It is, paradoxically, living it more deeply and fully. When we face finitude with courage, we create space for what really matters: the moments, the connections, and the experiences that make life meaningful. The question then becomes, how can the awareness of death transform us? How can it teach us to value the present, nurture genuine relationships, and seek a purpose that resonates with our deepest essence? These questions are not just about the end, they are about how to live more fully while we are here. Creating meaning in life is, above all, an act of will. It is not something we find by chance, like a precious stone on the ground, but something we build daily, like an artist sculpting a masterpiece from a block of raw marble. This creation requires intention, reflection, and a willingness to seek beauty and purpose in our own conditions, rather than waiting for them to be delivered to us. A powerful practice for creating meaning is journaling, or reflective writing. By recording moments of your life, thoughts, dreams, and feelings, you begin to notice the patterns that connect your experiences. This practice not only brings clarity but also helps capture those small moments of meaning that often go unnoticed. When rereading these pages, you may discover how certain events and choices shaped your path, and this creates a richer, more coherent narrative for your life. Another inexhaustible source of meaning is nature. Spending time outdoors, observing the vastness of the sky, the sound of waves, or the silent growth of a tree, reconnects us with something greater than ourselves. Nature reminds us of the interconnection of all things, of the simplicity and harmony we often lose in the hustle of everyday life. Walking in a park, tending to plants, or simply observing the cycle of the seasons can be a spiritual practice in itself, a way of finding meaning in our relationship with the world around us. Seeking a higher purpose, something that transcends our ego, is also a powerful way to create meaning. This can take many forms: serving a community, dedicating oneself to art, contributing to a cause, or cultivating a spiritual life. When we direct our energy towards something beyond ourselves, we experience a sense of belonging and connection that gives depth to our existence. These acts need not be grand. Often it is in the small things, a gesture of kindness, a moment of attentive listening, that we find the deepest meanings. The key is to remember that meaning is not something fixed or universal. It changes, grows, and adapts throughout our journey. What seems meaningful today may not be tomorrow, and that is perfectly fine. Creating meaning is a continuous process, a dialogue between who we are and the world we live in. It is a daily practice that requires presence and curiosity. So ask yourself, what can you do today to create a meaningful moment? How can you transform your experiences into something richer and more aligned with who you want to be? These actions, no matter how simple they may seem, are the foundations of a life lived with purpose. When we reflect on the meaning of life, we often find ourselves confronted with the feeling that we are searching for answers that never arrive. But perhaps the issue isn't about finding meaning, but about learning to live with the questions, embracing the mystery that life offers us. Life, after all, is not a puzzle to be solved, but an invitation to explore, experience, and create. Albert Camus challenges us to accept the absurd and find joy in the struggle. He teaches us that even in an indifferent universe, we can live with intensity and courage, creating meaning through our choices and actions. His vision is a call to resistance, a celebration of the human ability to reinvent itself in the face of emptiness. Carl Jung, on the other hand, invites us to look inward. He shows us that meaning does not need to come from the outside, but can emerge from our own psyche, through the process of individuation and the dialogue with the unconscious. For Jung, the journey of self-knowledge is the key to becoming whole, integrating light and shadow, reason and intuition, consciousness and mystery. These perspectives, although different, complement each other profoundly. Camus teaches us to live with courage in the outer world, while Jung guides us to find purpose in the inner universe. Together, they show us that the meaning of life is not found in definitive answers, but in the way we relate to the questions. Life, then, does not give us answers. It offers us experiences, challenges, moments of joy and pain. It gives us the freedom to create our own narratives, to find meaning in the little things, and to build a purpose that resonates with our essence. Each day is a new opportunity to ask the right questions and live with authenticity and intention. I invite you to reflect on this. What questions are you asking life? And how are you creating meaning from your answers? or from the absence of them? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your journey may inspire others to explore their own questions. If this message resonated with you, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for more content like this. Here we explore together the depths of self-knowledge, philosophy, and spirituality, always with the goal of living more consciously and meaningfully. Remember, life is not a problem to be solved, but an invitation to be accepted. And in this invitation lies all the beauty and mystery of being here, now. Until the next meeting.